Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rennie, Editor-in-Chief at ASCM, and I'm joined today by our CEO, Abe Eshkenazi, and ASCM Board Member and Director of Global Sourcing and Materials Planning at Libby Inc., Mike Bungie. Thanks so much for joining me for this discussion about all things procurement, gentlemen.
Wonderful, Beth. Good to join you today.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So, Abe, this past Friday, Impact discussed the talent gap in procurement and the effect that's having on supply chain as a whole. You made the point that procurement professionals needed to serve a critical link between suppliers and buyers, emphasizing collaboration and visibility. So let's start by discussing the important role procurement professionals play in today's supply chains and why it's so important for supply chain organizations to work with their supply basis to establish this common vision. Mike, why don't you kick us off with that?
Yeah, sure. I'm a big believer in vision, and we spend as organizations an inordinate amount of time internally, right, making sure that our employees and all of our internal stakeholders are aligned with the company's vision. We often forget to realize that it's not our companies versus our competitors, right? It's our supply chains versus our competitors' supply chains, and they're often interwoven. They're not a standalone supply chain. So, often too, we're not serving our customer. We might be serving a distributor who's serving a retailer who's serving the end user. We might be somewhere in the middle of that chain, and then up from us is maybe a tier 1 supplier, tier 2, tier 3. We spend a lot of time internally communicating our vision. We really need to do that externally also. Our suppliers need to be aligned. We need to be aligned, first of all, with our customers and with our end users. We need to be adding value, but we also need that same vision with our suppliers, our tier 1s and our tier 2s. And we need to make sure that they understand what that vision is. We need to make sure that we share similar vision, perhaps the same vision. And if we're not communicating it, and it can be a tough thing to communicate, can't it? Often in our own organizations, we don't just talk about vision. We understand it. We go through exercises. We sometimes will bring in consultants to help us drive vision through our organization. Well, we should be doing those same things to our suppliers so that our suppliers have an elevator speech and they understand what our company's vision is and they're aligned to it.
Abe, so Mike talked a little bit about this, but to talk a little more about this strategic alignment. So what functions within an organization should procurement do to ensure this strategic alignment?
A really good point, because I think in the days of just-in-time and lean and cost efficiencies, oftentimes it was the procurement department that was at the last step of the process in terms of negotiating low cost or reduced inventory deliveries. They were focused on the efficiency aspect of it. With the pandemic and with a lot of the disruption, we saw that, to Mike's point, the coordination and collaboration necessary, not only within the four walls, but outside the four walls of the organization, have now become critical. We saw some of the disruption, whether it was from surges or shifts in demand, that we didn't respond as well as we could have, not only through lack of visibility, but lack of transparency. So in order to overcome some of the challenges, you need to ensure that the collaboration or communication now sits at the strategic level within the organization, so that the CPO or the procurement departments are talking to the manufacturing, the planners, the sales and operations planning process. They definitely, obviously, need to be incorporated into that discussion. But then they need to understand the customers, and they need to understand what the impact on their manufacturing does to their suppliers as well as to their customers. So you're looking at two ends of the spectrum, where in the past it traditionally was only they're taking a look at their suppliers. How do I negotiate a low cost? How do I, euphemistically, how do I beat you up to get what benefits my organization? I think we're seeing a much more collaborative approach. The research that we did with Swank is a great example of how organizations are viewing their vendors differently. In one particular case, they identified that organizations were paying their vendors faster. to ensure that they were in business. This is a very different type of collaboration that you're seeing with organizations take with their vendors. And more importantly, now you need to extend that beyond your tier 1 into your tier 2 and tier 3. So the role of the CPO has expanded, but more importantly, the collaboration necessary across the enterprise and outside the enterprise are now paramount.
So as the editor of the magazine, I often get people submitting articles to me. And I will say in the last maybe 3 years, I've gotten a lot of stories that talk about, maybe in the headline, procurement is more than just purchasing. Procurement is more than just sourcing. You know, it's more than just the dollars and cents. There's a lot more they can do. So Mike, tell me about your own personal experiences with that and how procurement professionals can positively affect the bottom line, but maybe in different ways.
Sure. I mean, we've studied as procurement professionals, right? We know that a dollar saved is a dollar earned. I think probably our parents told us that, right? And so you compare that, and I'm not necessarily, importance, that kind of thing aside, right? A dollar of revenue is not worth a dollar to our bottom line. A dollar of revenue, right, depending on our EBITDA multiples, whatever, is maybe worth 10 cents to 20 cents to 30 cents to our bottom line. On the procurement side, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. It hits our bottom line directly. It's money we didn't spend or we saved, right? Cost savings or opportunity cost. Procurement in a mature procurement organization serves many other functions than just kind of beat the supplier up type of thing. It's the old days when you used to put the bulldog in procurement. And Abe, you alluded to this, right? The loudest bark, the strongest bite would be our procurement organization, and stick them on our supply base. Those days are over. And our procurement teams are often the ones that are out in the field that understand what our competitors are doing from the back end, right? They're seeing what's going on in the factories that feed their organization. They see what's going on in those factories that feed other organizations. So there's a whole, we often don't think of procurement this way, but there's a sensing mechanism that takes place with an understanding of what's going on that back end. And as procurement professionals, the more skilled we are at understanding our front end, understanding our clients, understanding our customers, we can do a much better job of taking this back end and linking the two together. And really that's, if you the plan, source, make, deliver, return, we take a strategic look at this. And we're really holistically a supply chain linking our suppliers to our customers and clients. And the better job we do of this, the more value we're adding for our customers in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked a little bit before about CPOs and their career path and how that's changing. So what skills are needed in addition to the core skills, such as negotiation, contract management, cost control, things like that?
We hit on a couple of them. I mean, Mike identified to us, I think, one of the key aspects of it, and that's the collaboration necessary within an organization. Supply chain used to be fairly siloed. You had your planners, you had your buyers, you had your logistics, you had your warehouse guys, and truly aligned organizations coordinated all the activities so that they were working in concert and very harmonized, as opposed to a segmented approach where you just throw your data or you throw your process over the transom and it's somebody else's issue. So we're seeing much more collaboration. But I think we're also seeing quite a bit of stress on the CPO because, to Mike's point, in the past, everything stopped at the CPO when you got to purchasing. I mean, nothing occurred unless the CPO negotiated the best rates and got your necessary parts, your bill of materials, so that you can, do your manufacturing process. No longer is it just a matter of transactional. Now you're seeing much more strategic relationships that are required with your vendors and your tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that we just referenced a little bit ago. It's interesting to note that most of the disruption occurred on tier 2, tier 3 vendors, not tier 1 vendors, through the pandemic. So the transparency and visibility necessary for an organization to partner with their vendors, and to Mike's point, understanding what your customers' expectations are so you can meet them, now starts to expand the role of the CPO beyond just the buy for the inventory. So we're starting to see much more collaboration on addressing the customer and your vendors beyond your tier 1. But it also bears mentioning that the focus on sustainability now encompasses the CPO in holding vendors accountable for the same metrics or the same issues that you hold your organization accountable for, whether it's child labor or whether it's conflict materials. These are now part of the CPO's requirement in terms of understanding where do you need to be aware of how your supply chain is resourced, how it's manufactured, and what kind of footprint do you leave in the environment. So this has expanded the CPO just beyond the cost element you identified before of contract management and cost control. Now we're seeing much more impact on the holistic organization, but in collaboration with chief sustainability officers, chief climate change officers, chief supply chain officers. You need to ensure that these people are sitting at the table when the strategies are developed so that you can ensure alignment, to Mike's point.
Yeah, where you put your money says a lot, absolutely. So Mike, you recently were quoted in our ASCM blog, and you said communication is a sign of a mature procurement program. So can you share some real world examples of how to establish effective communication?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Beth. And I actually saw, as we're talking here, I saw a comment come up about CPFR, right, which is collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment. So thanks for that comment. This is exactly what we're talking about here. How, at one point in time, or in an immature organization, you would talk about procurement in terms of the tactical side, right? You issue a PO, you get a receipt. The invoice is received. I got a three-way match. Boom, I pay. Move on to the next. Those days are, and maybe that's appropriate for a certain type of supplier that it's not strategic. It's not. It's just a tactical buy, and that's fine. But in a lot of cases, we like to take it to the next level, and we like to share more than just POs and invoices with each other. I talked about vision, right? You also share things about your forecast, your new product development initiative. You bring in suppliers to actual NPD meetings, and the supplier often adds a completely different perspective. So, it's not so much it's not so much the dollars and cents that are traded anymore. It's more the information and the value add. You bring a supplier in, and a real life example is, perhaps you're buying item XYZ for whatever, $5, and if I can now get item, XYZ Rev 1 that lasts 3 times as long, I'm willing to pay $10 for that item, and my organization comes out ahead, sort of like a value engineering type of thing. And the more information we share with our tier 1s, our tier 2s, in both directions, right? It goes both ways. Now, I mentioned sharing forecasting. We also need our tier 1s and tier 2s to share things like capacity, capabilities, and to align that with our organization. And we just saw, this last year of the crazy world of supply chain we've lived, we've seen how important forecasting and capacity planning is, and information sharing. The bullwhip effect, it really used to be something that we'd learn in the classroom, and the bullwhip effect we often in our organization would not see. In my career, I've been in this field for 30 years. I have never seen bullwhip effect to the extent that we've seen over the last 12 months. It's insane. But that's what we're talking about: sharing information, speed, reaction, and really focusing on the value add of that equation.
All right, so one of the main reasons that we're all here today is because ASCM is very excited to have just launched our supply chain procurement certificate. So this online program includes about 18 to 20 hours of education. It's designed for both entry-level or more experienced supply chain professionals. So Abe, can you tell us more about the certificate and what learners are going to gain when they earn it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty excited about this because I think it fills in a gap within the industry. While there may be certifications for more leadership or career-oriented individuals, there's been a significant gap within the entry level on how do you get into supply chain, how do you get into procurement. And I think this is one of the challenges that we've had is, identifying good career paths for individuals and, more importantly, jobs. So this certificate offers an opportunity for individuals not only to gain specific knowledge about procurement, negotiation, collaboration, a lot of the things that Mike and I were identifying as critical for today's procurement professional, but as well for individuals to gain the necessary skills to get a job. We've seen a tremendous displacement of individuals, and the competencies necessary are included within the program. So it's not like you have to study this and go and get additional information. This will qualify you to serve in a procurement organization. But I think it's also important to note that we've provided opportunities for individuals to get career aspirations as well. Younger individuals, explaining to them the opportunities that exist within supply chain, not just in procurement, but there are multiple entry points within supply chain. Procurement is a fantastic opportunity to gain visibility into the organization's operations, understanding its customers, understanding your vendors, understanding the manufacturing process. I can't think of a better opportunity for individuals right now considering a job or a career path, that they would undertake this and see that the benefits, not only in terms of compensation, but making a difference. And I think that's what everybody attempts to do within their job, have it be meaningful as well as financially rewarding. We're seeing that individuals, there's a significant need for competent supply chain professionals. We can't think of a better opportunity for individuals to get the certificate and qualify themselves for organizations.
And Mike, I know you were involved in that as well. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
I'd really like to congratulate ASCM on coming out with the procurement certificate. Earlier I mentioned the whole plan, source, make, deliver, return, this supply chain process. And ASCM, is recognized worldwide for their content on supply chain management as a profession. And this procurement certificate fits in so nicely with the rest of the body of knowledge. So congratulations, Abe and team.
Thanks so much, Mike. And thanks, Abe, for joining us. And thank you to everyone and all your comments. Really appreciate hearing from you too. To learn more about ASCM's new supply chain procurement certificate, please visit our website at ascm.org. Thanks again for joining us and have a great day, everybody.